Hello, 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 good people. This is Danielle here at Black Healing Matters with yet another idea that will hopefully put you one step closer to your healing. And today I am continuing our series called Welcome Wellness. And I want to just talk a little bit about this series. The reason I really considered doing this series in the first place is because I see so often that many of us, Black people, we are so focused on stuff. And well, that doesn't mean not sound profound, but many of us are focused on that. We have this kind of like money over everything, and just grind and go hard. It's kind of like always in action, always going for something, always kind of like go. And there's very, very little, if any, I haven't heard much, but very little conversation about our wellness. And so I see wellness as this kind of holistic sphere with you in the middle. Okay, like a bubble that surrounds us. And that includes every aspect of our being, including our spiritual, our physical, our mental, our environment, everything that affects our day-to-day lives. And so my goal with this podcast is really to help us have better moments. Yes, I said better moments. Because better moments lead to better days. And better days lead to better weeks, months, years, and lifetimes, essentially. And so, when we talk about wellness, there are we're going to focus on about 7 different components of wellness. There are many models. Some people say 4, some people say up to even 9, I've even heard. But I think that these 7 are really impactful, and that I would like to talk a little bit about how each one of these different pillars of wellness can be improved in our lives. And so today, I'm going to talk about the first pillar, which is social wellness. And so what is social wellness? Well, it's about the relationships that we have with each other and the people around us, especially like our families, our friends, our co-workers, anyone that we come in contact with on a regular basis. And I will include with that Black people in general, because we also see each other in a very unique and special way. And so creating and cultivating social wellness is really about, it's kind of like a bank account, right? And in your bank account, you can make deposits and you can make withdrawals. And wellness is like that. If you're constantly making withdrawals from the society around you, then obviously that you're not creating a situation of wellness. And if you're constantly also making deposits into the society at large and never accepting any withdrawals, well, then you're also out of balance. And so it's finding that healthy space of not making too many withdrawals while still contributing and depositing into the people around us. And so this is about creating harmonious relationships. And really, when I think about creating harmonious relationships within our community, which I think is huge. That's a huge issue. There's, unfortunately, we know of the dysfunction. But the tip that I want to give today is really about how we see each other socially. And when I say we, I mean Black people. How we interact with and see each other on a social level. So I'm talking about maybe Black folks that you don't know, but that you may have, may come in contact with in some way. And I encourage you to begin seeing other Black people as also descendants of greatness. Of course, that includes yourself. Understanding that you really are a descendant of kings and queens. Yes. And that even the lowliest amongst us is also a descendant of greatness. Now they may be in a position that doesn't look so great, but their lineage is the same. And so if you just consider this, if you knew that every other Black person you come across was a king, a queen, a princess, they came from greatness, just like the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers. How would you treat them? How would you treat the Rothschilds? How would you treat the Fords and the descendants of those great people? American heroes, American leaders of industry and culture. Well, I want you to apply that very same feeling, enamorment, enthusiasm, love, and care for other Black people, because they really are descendants of greatness. And this is really tied to knowing and understanding the history, African history, not slave history. I think that there's a very deliberate effort to minimize our history to begin with American chattel slavery. And that is just not true. I forgot where I heard this quote, but it was mentioned that if a book was written about African history and included all of African history, 1,000-page book about African history, well, American chattel slavery wouldn't show up until like page 999 or something like that. It's a very small part of our history. And so that knowing our history is also number 2. That's a second tip to really improving our social wellness. Because if we see each other and understand that we are truly descendants of greatness, then how can we mistreat each other? How can we not have respect for each other? How can we not show love and at least respectful appreciation for each other? And so, yes, social wellness is obviously a huge part of Black healing. And I hope that these 2 tips that I've shared with you today about, number 1, really seeing your own people as descendants of greatness. And number 2, understanding and reading and learning the history. And again, not just American history, but African history, because that's truly from which we came. All right. I hope those 2 tips are helpful and that this can really impact your wellness and bring better and greater levels of social wellness to you in your communities today. And on that note, love you. Thank you for listening. And as always, Black Healing Matters.
Hey, Danielle. This is Ruben over at the Reflections podcast, and I was listening into your great post, and I was thinking to myself, you know what? One of the struggles that we had to deal with, and we still deal with the impact of it today, is the fact that not only did we have to struggle with segregation and racism and Jim Crow and discrimination, but during slavery times, we have to deal with the fact that we were dehumanized, that we were looked at, as you said, like basically livestock. And I think that is something to keep in mind, because we are struggling with the fact that when we see each other, no matter how much we want to emphasize the kings and queens language, that we are still dealing with the fact that we are encountering our own people, but through the lens of these stereotypes and media and this false narrative that's been told about us, that we are not, in fact, full human beings. Hey, Danielle, Ruben again, and just want to add on as well to the point that you make about knowing our history. That is so true, because I've encountered so many times just from the clergy journey and church side of things, that a lot of people will say that we only became Christians and only took up the religion as a part of slavery. And that is a factor. Religion did play a role in slavery, but people rarely take the time to investigate and go back beyond slavery and before slavery in the early history of the church and throughout church history, to see the African origins of Christianity and the roles that we played again before slavery. So I say all that because when we go back and we look at our own history, we see a lot of contributions that we have made that would not have allowed human civilization to progress as far as it has.
The podcast you just heard was recorded with Anchor. If you want to make your own, download the Android or iOS app completely free from anchor.fm/podcast. That's anchor.fm/podcast.